Welcome back. All right, today we are going to look at number 5 draft picks in the National Hockey League from 2004 until 2023. Star power drops off a bit, of course, as you go further and further down at the draft, proving once again that getting those top 3 draft picks is very, very important. But also you're looking at players who it takes a little longer to develop. So the reasons why a player is going to get taken later is, first off, he may not have the higher ceiling that the other player does that they take instead. And also it may take longer to develop. So you might be like, okay, well, this guy's ready now. This guy's going to be ready in 3 years. Let's get the guy who's ready now. And the other teams can worry about the guy who's ready in 3 years, whoever ends up taking him. So 1 through 20. And this is one instance where 2012 doesn't actually do that badly. The 2012 draft very often 20th or 19th when I do these videos, but in this case, not so much. Now, I don't know if I'm going to do a number 6 draft picks. I may do things a little bit differently. Going past number 5, I may do it just a little bit different, and so we'll get there when we get there. But at number 20 on this one is from 2016, Olli Juolevi, drafted by the Vancouver Canucks. And the less said about who was drafted right after Olli Juolevi, the better. Am I right? So, Olli Juolevi did make it into the NHL, but didn't stay very long. Famously got blown up during a bag skate at the Vancouver Canucks practice. And so, yeah, Juolevi ends up 20th on the list. This was an absolute miss by the Vancouver Canucks organization. Number 19. Number 19 because he has yet to debut in the National Hockey League. And once he has, may very well end up being an excellent number 5 draft pick. But David Reinbacher at this point, it is interesting because he hasn't played yet. So how is he ahead of Juolevi? I just don't see how he won't be better than Juolevi. Considering all the scouting reports and everything, he'd kind of have to be. So I'm going to take Reinbacher ahead of Juolevi, and yeah, Reinbacher may very well end up being a very good defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. They have a lot of good young defensemen, though. It will be interesting to see how many of them stick around long-term with the organization and how many don't. And if Reinbacher ends up being the player that they hope he will be, it may allow for another defenseman to become expendable soon enough. Number 18 on the list from 2014. See, 2012 is nowhere to be found yet. From 2014, Michael Del Cole. Drafted by the New York Islanders. He had a couple of good runs there, but in the end, just not enough for me to have him any higher than 18th. Number 5 draft picks, you never know. You might end up with a steal. You might end up with a player who it just doesn't end up panning out at the NHL level. And so, yeah, Michael Del Cole ends up 18th on the list. 17th on the list, one that still has the chance to maybe end up being a regular in the NHL, likely in a bottom 6 role, from 2019. So it has been 6 years since Alex Turcotte was drafted. He's gone through a lot of injury issues, of course, and that has definitely hurt his stock. So I have him at 17th on the board. I really would love to see him have a really good year for the Kings, though, but at this point, I couldn't justify having him any higher than 17th. At 16th on the board, from 2007. From 2007, it is Karl Alzner. Now, the weird thing with Alzner is, for some reason, when he was playing, I'd mess things up and call him Kyle Alzner. If you're watching Karl, Kyle might work better. Kyle might work better than Karl. Just throwing that out there. Kyle Alzner sounds good too. So Karl Alzner, who definitely was an NHL defenseman, not an overly long career for Karl Alzner. But I have him at 16th on the board. And I decided to put him ahead of Turcotte. Longer resume for Alzner than for Turcotte. But you can make the argument, I think, either way. Number 15 from 2022. And this is one of those things where, a year from now, might end up a lot higher on the board, and that's Cutter Gauthier. Cutter Gauthier, of course, famously or infamously, depending on which side of the fence you're on this, did not want to play in Philadelphia, and instead is playing now for the Anaheim Ducks. And so Gauthier had himself a very good rookie season. If he builds on that, the next time out when I rank number 5 draft picks, he'll be much higher than 15th. For what he's done thus far in his career, I feel like 15th is the right spot for him. Number 14 from 2008. Over 1,000 games played in his career. And I will say this for Luke Schenn. When he ended up looking like he wasn't going to be in the NHL anymore and he might be AHL level for the rest of it, he stuck around and fought through it, ends up getting that second chance, has been good in the NHL since getting that second chance. And so, yeah, over 1,000 games played for Luke Schenn. I have nothing but respect for him. But Luke Schenn does come in 14th on the list, just based on the overall career. And I know this is where things get a little difficult, and it does feel like it's a little more clear-cut with number 1 draft picks than number 5. Number 13 from 2018. From 2018 is Barrett Hayton. When the Coyotes drafted Hayden 5th overall, there were definitely some raised eyebrows, but Hayden's a center, and that's what happens. Centers get drafted earlier and end up surprising people with how early they go. I think the then Coyotes and now Mammoth are pretty happy with Hayden's career, and I think there's a lot more there. I think there's some upside. I think he's going to be able to score more points in upcoming seasons. Barrett Hayton is number 13 on the number 5 list. 12th on the list from 2021, and another player who I know is going to get better and better and better. To this point, I am fine with having Kent Johnson at number 12 on the list. He was a big part of the reason that the Columbus Blue Jackets stayed in the mix. Nice run at the end of the season for them. Everybody really chipped in, but Kent Johnson, I think, came into his own. So there were question marks about him a couple years ago. I think those have largely gone away, and now it's a matter of, a full season for Columbus, and if everybody stays healthy, who knows, maybe Kent Johnson gets into some playoff games in 2026. Just outside the top 10 in 11th spot from 2020. Nope. I'm calling an audible. From 2010, Nino Niederreiter. The interesting thing with Niederreiter is, initially, when he made it to the NHL, it didn't go well for him. It did not go well for him. He stuck with it, ends up being traded as well, and Nino Niederreiter's gone on to have a very good career, very solid career, and he is a good third liner at the NHL level, and I do think that when I do this next summer, I would not be surprised to see Niederreiter down below Johnson and Gauthier. Just to this point in their careers, I give Nino the number 11 spot, but I do understand why there will be arguments in the comment section below this video, because there always is. But hey, it's summer. Why not have arguments? Number 10. From... Okay, now I'll put him in here. I just did not feel good about Jake Sanderson from 2020. Behind Nino Niederreiter, I thought, no, I want Jake Sanderson at 10. So Jake Sanderson in the top 10. Excellent defenseman on a contract which there were questions when he signed it. I think he's answered a lot of those, and I think the doubters will disappear with every season going forth. And so Sanderson gets the 10th spot on my countdown. Number 9 on the countdown from 2011. Ryan Strome has had a long, relatively successful career. He's been through a few teams, yes, but he gives an honest effort every night, good skill level, and his overall numbers, not too shabby. So, I mean, he's not an all-star or a Hall of Fame-bound player, but Strome has had a very good career. Maybe at some point he'll play with Dylan. I think it'd be fun if him and Dylan were on the same team for a while there. But yeah, Ryan Strome has been quite good. Number 8 from 2017. So this is where it definitely gets dicey. So Pettersson, EP40, Elias Pettersson, however you want to say it. Pettersson in Vancouver has had a rough past, 18 months? But prior to that, excellent numbers. Now, Pettersson is vowing he's going to have a better year this year than he had last season. And I don't see how he could be any worse than he was this past season. But Pettersson's body of work to this stage of his career, I think, still put him in 8th. Now, if he had a 100-point season this year, he'd be a lot higher on the countdown. But I couldn't bust him down more than that because, yes, he's had a rough past 18 months, but he's also had some very good seasons too. So I feel like 8th is kind of my compromise between where he's been, where he is, and hopefully where he's headed, which should be back up in the scoring. If not, the Vancouver Canucks' hopes of returning to the playoffs, they get dashed very quickly. Number 7 on the list from 2013. A former Canuck, also former Carolina Hurricane, former Calgary Flame, Elias Lindholm. Lindholm's career has been a good one. Not a fantastic first season in Boston for him. Just on the body of work that he's done, his overall resume, I feel like 7th is the right spot to have him. And hoping he has some sort of bounce back season with Boston this season. I know the Bruins are hoping for bounce backs and good health from a lot of players. So Lindholm would definitely be on that list. 6th on the list from 2015. Noah Hanifin, I think, has been underrated at points during his career. I did not have him on the defenseman list, but he was a consideration for me when I was ranking out defensemen. Noah Hanifin is a very good defenseman. Playing for the Vegas Golden Knights now, he's going to get more attention than he did previously. And yeah, I think Hanifin at 6 makes a lot of sense. You guys can definitely let me know your thoughts on that. But yeah, I like Hanifin at 6th on this list. At 5th from 2004. It'll be the last time that Blake Wheeler ends up on a list like this, unless I do all-time number 5 draft picks. Have I done number 5 draft picks of all time? I don't know that I have. It's easy to find a list of number 1 draft picks. It's pretty easy to find a list of number 2 draft picks. Number 5 can sometimes be a little more tricky, although I do believe that there's the search tool on Hockey Reference, which probably would give me all that information. But either way, the only way Wheeler would end up on a list of number 5 draft picks from here going forward would be if I do the all-time list. Blake Wheeler had a very good career, really good run with the Winnipeg Jets. I did think at times the criticism of Blake Wheeler was over the top. I also understood that Blake Wheeler was probably playing more minutes than he should have later on in his career. So I understood both sides in that argument. I didn't necessarily 100% agree with either, which is pretty common for me nowadays, where, yeah, that makes some sense, but everybody's crazy. So sporting-wise, that's very often the case of this team, yeah, everybody's crazy. It's not just hockey, it's all over. 4th on the list from 2009. It's always one of my favorite things about the Shen brothers, that they were both drafted 5th overall. In 2009, Shen is drafted by, I do believe it was by the Kings. And now, of course, he's with the St. Louis Blues. Braden Shen, excellent top 6 forward. Stanley Cup ring with the Blues, I do believe. He's been there for a while, so I'm just my rattling brain going, yeah, he was on that team in 2019, sure. But yeah, Braden Shen, 2009. Really good number 5 draft pick. I remember it took a little bit longer for him to make it to the NHL than I had figured when he got drafted, but he was worth the wait. So Braden Shen, top 4 on this list. Number 3 from 2012. So playing in Toronto means you do get a lot more scrutiny than you would elsewhere. And it's reality. You have more media, you have more fans, more attention. So Morgan Riley gets a lot of criticism. I don't think it's 100% fair. There is some criticism to be had there. I think Morgan Riley's problem in Toronto has been he's been miscast as the number one defenseman, their answer to whatever the number of defensemen is on other teams. And I honestly think Morgan Riley should probably be number 2 on the list. I don't think they've had a true number 1 defenseman for a while. Though Riley, I still think, has had a very good career. And I remember before they named Tavares as captain, there were a lot of people that wanted to see Morgan Riley as captain. Now Austin Matthews is captain. I don't hear anything about Riley's name necessarily, but he's been a good Toronto Maple Leafs player for a long time. So proof that the 2012 draft wasn't completely cursed. It did have its share of decent players, and Morgan Riley is one of those decent players out of that draft. Jacob Slavin was out of that draft too. Number 2 on the list, from 2006. He would end up in Toronto, and then he moved on to win Stanley Cups in Pittsburgh. Phil Kessel. Phil Kessel still not currently retired. Every now and then I'll take a look. I'm like, is Phil retired officially? Nope. I haven't seen anything about Phil Kessel actually being retired. So Phil Kessel from 2006 gets the number 2 spot. Stanley Cup rings, really strong play with the Toronto Maple Leafs team that wasn't good. Kessel kind of had to go out and do it all by himself at points, and he did. So, gifted player. He's another one that, because of playing in Toronto, got overrated at times, underrated at others, or I thought he got more criticism. I do still remember the missing posters for Phil Kessel. So, and then he went to Pittsburgh and won back-to-back cups. So, they found him. Which brings us to number 1. Number 1's pretty easy. This is one pick that I really didn't have to think about who was number 1. I just put the number 1 next to Carey Price's name and then argued with myself about the others. Carey Price picked number 1 overall. That was 20 years ago that Pierre Maguire flipped out when Montreal made that draft pick because he felt that Montreal was already set in goal, and therefore, why are you picking up Carey Price? Turned out Montreal knew what they were doing. Carey Price, excellent goaltender. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. And, I mean, he never had a Stanley Cup ring, but there wasn't really a Montreal team that he was behind that I felt like was a really true Stanley Cup contender. Even in 2021, I thought Carey Price was a large part of the reason that they got there. I didn't think it was necessarily the roster. I think it was Price putting the team on his back. And he had a reputation for that. Definitely scared other teams. If it was a one-game winner take all, you didn't want to have Carey Price at the other end of the ice. So he's the number 1 pick on this list of number 5 draft picks. So there you go. I don't think I'm doing 6 and beyond. I really don't. I will come up with some other concept and some other idea for other list videos. But this number 5 draft pick's probably where I end this. Because once you get into 6 and beyond, you're getting into a lot of projects, players that haven't debuted yet, etc., etc. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.